gets it. Hi, people of the internet. Today I have for you a special car review because it is the all-new 2023 Nissan Z. And this holds a special place in my heart personally because I used to own a 2003 Nissan 350Z and I had it for over 9 years, the longest I've ever owned any vehicle before. So I have quite a bit of experience in the Z platform and it'll be exciting to see what they have changed with this new Z. Before I start this review, I have to give a disclaimer. Nissan was kind enough to send me this new Z. However, it is a pre-production model. So there's some fit and finish things that might not be the same as the production car because I use these ones for testing and so journalists can beat the shit out of them. First up, it's got a massive stainless steel Calisonic Kansai muffler. Not sure how I feel about this exhaust tip design, but at least it's actual metal. Now this performance model comes with this 1.5-way mechanical limited slip differential with a 3.1 final drive. I was trying to see if this is the R190 or R200 diff, but there's no casting numbers I can find anywhere on here. Much like the previous two generations of Z, it still utilizes an all aluminum multi-link rear suspension, rear anti-sway bar, 26-ish millimeter. In contrast to the 370Z though, it now has a larger diameter bodied monotube damper. I'll tell you what's not large diameter though is this exhaust piping. This is like pea shooter. It's super tiny for a twin turbo car. 45 millimeter. Granted, it is essentially a true dual exhaust with the exception of this little H/X pipe you get here in the center all the way up to the cats. So while it looks tiny, 1 3/4 and 1 3/4 is 3.5 because math. Well, it's got a little bit of a bottleneck, 2.5. Now, despite what you would think, the new Z is not called the Z35 chassis. Because this is essentially a heavily reworked 370Z platform, it is called in-house the RZ34 by Nissan. This performance model with the 6-speed manual weighs in at 3,536 pounds, which means the car has gained weight from the previous gen. Well, the W brace doesn't look much different. These front subframe braces were tubular on the Z33. I believe this is completely unchanged though from the previous gen. The manual transmission in this new Z is still the FS6R31A, which is a version of the Aisin AZ6 6-speed manual transmission. It still has the synchro rev match feature that was found on the 370Z. Still get a carbon fiber composite drive shaft, just like the previous two generations on the manual cars. While I could not find what was changed internally for this new RZ34 chassis, the transmission has been revised and it comes standard with an Exity performance clutch. And yes, you can get this with an automatic as well if you're into that. To hail, somebody spray painted one of the cats green. Unfortunately, because the side skirts are lower than the pinch welds, these things are kind of a pain to get onto a lift. Up front is where the biggest changes are over the previous generation. The geometry on the front suspension has been completely reworked for the RZ34. Still an all aluminum double wishbone configuration, though it does have those larger diameter Takiko struts as I mentioned. You can see it's kind of cambered inboard. That's interesting. All aluminum front subframe as well. Thankfully, they got a plastic underbelly tray instead of that cardboard crap. That is an absolutely adorable little end link. Look how short and fat it is. Little front anti-sway bar measures in at 27 and change millimeter. Nice. Still not very maintenance friendly up in there. Time for the braking test. Right behind me. Ready? Oh, this is gonna hurt. Ooh! Wow, ass end comes up quite a bit. I didn't expect that. Good stopping distance though. That braking was just made possible thanks to these massive 355 millimeter or 14-inch front rotors with a 4-piston red painted Akebono caliper same ones you got on the 370Z. The wheels on this performance model, they are made by RZ Engineering, and they are a forged 19 by 9.5 in the front, and they are wrapped in a set of 255/40 Bridgestone Potenza S007 tires. Exact same tires I have on my Forester XT, and I have to say I like them quite a bit. Really like these side skirts with the black texturized plastic piece in the middle. Out back there is a 350mm or 13.8-inch rotor. It is vented, and a set of 2 piston calipers. The wheels, they're staggered. It's a 19 by 10 out back wrapped in a 275/35 James Bond Bridgestone. In the name of science, I am now going to give it the beans. Bolstering check. Perfect. Excellent bolstering. It's got Alcantara suede in the center. Seat buttons are still here on the side of the seat. They are heated. They also give you options for a blue and a red interior. The blue looks fire. The interior is just simple and clean looking. I like it. I especially like the infotainment system area over here in the center. Massive improvement over the past 2 generations. And as far as drive modes go, right next to the shifter, there is a little button that says S mode, and that is so you can turn on and off your auto rev match, as well as enable the launch control and flat foot shifting. They also give you some telemetry on the gauge cluster, which is completely digital, and there's different configurations of styles of screens you can put on there. Change meter view, sport, normal. Let's get a little Z on there. Cute. What's enhanced? Oh, fancy. Geez, there's all kinds of stuff in here. Engine oil temp, water temp, engine oil pressure, diff oil. It even tells you what you're doing in clicks in the bottom corner. There is a turbo speed gauge, because albeit these turbos are tiny, they're rather advanced. They have a sensor to monitor turbine speed, as well as an electronic wastegate actuator, which makes for better boost control for tuning. I'm going to enable this launch control, but first I can adjust the speed in which it launches at by using my cruise control buttons. Okay, launch control is set. Ready? Not bad. Yeah, get it! This thing fucking rips. That's good. Whoa! Me in this car is fun. Holy shit, I want to do that again. Well, the chime is more pleasant now. Pop. Nice and light. Oh, that's great. Man, they even clear coated the engine bay. Excellent job painting in here, Nissan. Attention to detail. Even the hood hinges are painted completely and clear coated. Underneath that lightweight aluminum hood lies the VR30 DD-TT, which was taken out of the Infiniti Q50 and Q60 400 Red Sport. It is a 3-liter twin turbocharged direct injected dual overhead cam V6 that produces 400 horsepower at 6,400 RPM and 350 pound-feet of torque from 1,600 up to 5,200 RPM. It's a little bit more involved than removing the engine cover on these. You gotta take off the strut tower brace, and there's some hardware up here, but through these vents you can see the dual water to air charge coolers. If you want to be all fancy pants and put Nismo radiator caps on this thing, you gotta buy 3. Digging in a little bit deeper on this engine, it has an 86 by 86 millimeter bore and stroke with a 10.3:1 compression ratio. The exhaust manifolds are cast into the heads, where the twin Garrett Honeywell MGT turbos are mounted, running at a peak of 15 PSI each. And like I said, it has the dual water to air charge coolers on the top of the engine right there by the intake plenum, with dual intakes, which started back on the VQ35HR for the 350Z and all models of the 370Z. And this does still employ Nissan's CVT-CS, which is their continuous variable valve timing on both intake and exhaust. The battery and the clutch and brake master cylinder on the other side are still located in these little plastic cubbies. Yeah, that's a tight engine bay. You can't even see down the side of it. That would be a chore. I know this is gonna sound weird, but the first thought that came to my mind when I sat in this Z was that it smelt like every Z for the past almost 20 years now. It's just like instantly I was like, that's a Z. It made me miss my old car. That probably wasn't intentional on Nissan's part, but I'm glad they pulled that off somehow because it's a nostalgia I didn't think I would get with this car. The number one selling point for me for this new Z is probably some people's criticism, and that's the fact that it is essentially a parts bin car, because this is a culmination of everything they've learned over the past generations of Z in just a heavily reworked version of the 370Z with a magnificent engine in it. I think that they absolutely perfected the Z platform with this new car. This is what we wanted back in 2003 when the 350Z first came out. Twin turbo, 400 horsepower. Also, the fact that they pretty much built the concept car version of this thing and then sold it to the public is awesome. I can't believe that they actually made the front of this car look like they did. I know a lot of people are kind of iffy on the styling of the front of the car, and at first I was like, that's definitely a concept. And because of that, I think that this is going to grow on a lot of people, because it's already grown on me styling wise. The back of the car, fucking perfection. I love the rear styling on this car. They nailed it on the interior as well. I like the interior on this car a lot better than I do the new Supra. Suede on the armrests is nice. This one has the optional illuminated door sills that glow at night. The Z still has a Bose sound system in it, and it doesn't sound too bad in here. There's just some blank cubbies behind the driver's seat. I was wondering if the subwoofer was there. There's a fair amount of room back there. I like that the strut tower brace is up closer here and not between the actual two strut towers, making it impossible to put things back there. It actually has a glove box. Well, that's hard plastic. Such a tiny little back window. You can slide this back. It's a hidden cup holder. No electronic parking brake. Nice. Boy, does this look familiar. That is absolutely the same rear view mirror that was in the 370 and 350. The little home link features. This thing gets it. It's not as fast as the Supra. It's not. And I'm curious what the 6-speed manual Supra will be like in comparison to this, because I think that'd be a more fair comparison. I'd be doing you guys an injustice if I tried to tell you exactly how the handling is on this car, driving it on the road without taking it on a track first. I can say there's a massive familiarity of this and the past two generations of Z. I feel like I'm at times driving a 350Z, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just you can jump into this car if you've owned either of the past two generations of Z, and you'll feel at home in it. There's a little learning curve to get used to it. I mean, granted, there's a lot more power, but it still feels very similar. As far as the downsides go, this is part of the reason why I sold my Z. These cars don't age well. Now, time will only tell to see how this new generation ages, but especially when they hit the used market and you start seeing them for like $4,000 or $5,000 beat to shit with questionable modifications driving around town, they lose their curb appeal. If you're on the fence of buying one of these right now, normally I wouldn't recommend buying the first model year of a new model of car, but with this Z, I don't really feel there's much of a drawback. Like Taco Bell food. Same ingredients, just different order. Still tastes just as good. Time to give this new Z some scores. And if you've never seen one of my reviews before, I have multiple categories that barely make any sense on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. First up though is the bean score. It's assessment on the feeling you get in your gut when you give it the beans. And this new 2023 Nissan Z is getting a rating of I got hair and flies in my mouth. It's windy. Next is the cookie score. It's an assessment on what you get for what you spend, and this performance 6-speed model with a few options added to it at just over $53,000 is getting a rating of... Take this into consideration though. The Z was never really a cheap car. Back in 2003, a touring 6-speed manual, which would be on par with this car here today, was $39,000 and change brand new. That was 19 years ago. So if you look at inflation, this is actually still a pretty good deal. Next is the wrench score. It's assessment on how much of an ass pain something would be to work on and maintain. And this car right here is getting a rating of. Lastly though is the Penguin score. It's assessment on how much I personally like a vehicle. And the all new Z is getting a rating of. To sum it up, if I had to choose right now between this and the new Supra, granted I haven't driven the new Supra with the manual transmission yet, I would choose the Z. And I know it's not a better car on paper. It has some flaws. It's a parts bin vehicle, but I think that's a good thing. I would choose the Z. I hope you guys enjoyed this review and thank you for watching. I'll see you soon with another. Bye!